Hey there! Ready to dive into something new today? We're all about fast tracking your knowledge here, and today's deep dive business models. Specifically, we're going to be taking apart Business Model Generation by Alexander Osterwalder and Yves Pigneur. Think of this as your secret weapon, kind of, for understanding how companies innovate and stay ahead of the curve. And to help us unearth the real gems in this book, we've got our expert with us.
It's fascinating how this book, even after all these years, still feels so relevant. The business world changes so rapidly, but the fundamentals they lay out, they're timeless.
It really is like a playbook, isn't it? And what's even more interesting to me is that it was actually co-created by over 470 practitioners, people in the trenches making things happen. That's where those real-world insights come in.
Exactly. It's not just theory. This is about as practical a guide to building a business as you can get. It gives you the framework, the tools, and the real-world examples to make it all click.
And speaking of frameworks, let's talk about one of the most useful ones, the Business Model Canvas. Can you break down what makes this tool so powerful?
Just imagine a one-page snapshot that tells you everything you need to know about a business. Its customers, its value proposition, how it operates, how it makes money. That's the business model canvas. It's your business distilled.
I remember the first time I saw this canvas, it was like, aha, it's all connected.
That's the beauty of it. It's visually intuitive, and it breaks down a business model into 9 essential parts: customer segments, value propositions, channels, customer relationships, revenue streams, key resources, key activities, key partnerships, and cost structure.
9 essential parts. Okay, now I see why a visual aid is a must-have. It's like taking something complex and making it manageable.
Exactly. And it's not just about understanding existing businesses. You can use it to design new ones, test different approaches, iterate, all in a way that's collaborative and easy to grasp.
So we've got our trusty canvas. What else does this book delve into?
Well, the book dives into some fascinating business model patterns. Think of them as blueprints for success.
Hmm.
And one that really captures the essence of innovation is the idea of unbundling.
Unbundling, huh? Okay, let's unpack that one.
It's all about recognizing that not everything has to be under one roof. Sometimes separating and focusing on core strengths can lead to greater efficiency and open up new market opportunities. Think about how large companies used to be structured vertically integrated, trying to do it all.
Right, from manufacturing to distribution, all in-house,
Mhm.
almost like they thought they had to control every step.
Exactly. But those different functions often have different economic drivers, different cultures. Trying to manage them all within a single structure can create conflicts and trade-offs.
And so unbundling says, hey, what if we let those separate parts thrive on their own terms?
Right. It's like instead of trying to be a jack of all trades, you become a master of one, and then you collaborate with other masters. The book uses the example of private banking, how traditionally these institutions tried to handle everything: customer relationships, product innovation, infrastructure, and how those require such different approaches.
It's like expecting your star salesperson to also be a tech whiz, not always a recipe for success, right? So by unbundling, you create separate entities that are each optimized for their specific function.
Precisely. And it's not just a theory. The book highlights how mobile telecom companies are now adopting this pattern, separating their network operations from customer relations and product development.
That's a great example. It's almost as if they realized that their strength wasn't just the network, it was the relationship with the customer.
And that by focusing on what they do best, they could actually create more value, both for themselves and for their customers.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, on to another pattern that really intrigues me, the long tail.
Ah, yes, the long tail. This pattern is a game changer, especially in the internet age.
Because it completely flips the script on traditional business thinking, doesn't it? It's like instead of trying to sell a ton of just a few popular products, you tap into the power of niche markets.
You got it. The internet has made it possible to offer a vast selection of products, each appealing to a smaller group, and still be profitable. Think. Think Netflix, with its extensive library of movies and shows, or eBay, connecting buyers and sellers for even the most obscure items, or even YouTube, giving a platform to creators with niche interests.
It's about recognizing that those niche customers, they add up. They might not be the masses, but they are passionate about their interests. And the internet allows you to connect with them.
And the beauty of it is that the aggregate sales from those niche products can actually rival, even surpass, the revenue from a smaller selection of blockbuster hits.
So you're catering to diverse tastes and potentially tapping into a much, much larger market overall.
Exactly. And it's not just about products. Think about online education, the variety of courses, the specialized knowledge people are seeking out. That's the long tail in action too.
Fascinating. So we've got unbundling and the long tail. What other innovative patterns does the book explore?
Well, from niche markets, let's move to the giants of the internet. Specifically, multi-sided platforms.
Ah, yes, those businesses that seem to be everywhere these days.
Exactly. And they're powerful because they connect two or more distinct but interdependent groups, creating value by facilitating interactions. Think about Google connecting users searching for information with advertisers trying to reach their target audience, or credit card companies linking merchants and shoppers.
So it's all about building a network. And the value of that network grows exponentially as more users join.
You got it. That's the network effect in action. Think about how Facebook becomes more valuable to you the more friends you have on it. That's the same principle. More users on one side of the platform make it more appealing and valuable for users on the other side. The book uses examples like Google, Nintendo, and Apple to illustrate just how powerful this pattern can be.
It's almost like creating a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
More users attract more users, and the platform itself becomes the central hub. It's brilliant, really.
It is. And it's a fundamental shift from traditional business models that focused on reaching customers directly. With multi-sided platforms, you're creating an ecosystem.
Okay, now, for a pattern that I think everyone can get behind, free E as a business model. Now, we all love free stuff, but how does this actually work sustainably?
Right. It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? But it's entirely possible, and the book delves into several ways to make it work. Advertising is the classic example. Think Google searches or Facebook. You get to use the platform for free because advertisers are paying to reach you.
And then there's the freemium model where you get the basic service for free, but you can pay to unlock additional features like Spotify or even some online games.
Exactly. The key with these models is to attract a large enough user base with your free offering. That way, even if only a small percentage converts to paid users or generates revenue through other means, you can still achieve profitability.
It's fascinating how digital technologies have made these kinds of models possible. It's like the economics of information are completely different.
Absolutely. Okay, ready to explore the final pattern.
Hit me with it.
It's called open business models. And it's all about recognizing that the best ideas don't always come from within your own four walls.
So you're tapping into the collective genius of the world. It's like crowdsourcing innovation.
You got it. Companies are realizing that by leveraging external knowledge, technologies, even resources, they can drastically accelerate their innovation and development processes. The book uses the example of Procter & Gamble, a company known for its innovation. They realized they didn't have to invent everything in-house.
It's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Open innovation is all about going far.
Well said. Okay, so we've walked through the business model canvas, explored a range of business model patterns from unbundling to the power of free. It's a lot to take in, but I think it gives a really, really good foundational understanding of the book's core ideas.
It does. And what's great is that it arms you with this amazing toolkit for analyzing just about any business. Speaking of tools, we've talked about the canvas, but the book goes beyond just mapping out a business model, right? It delves into how to actually put these ideas into practice.
Absolutely. It devotes an entire section to design, and it's packed with techniques and strategies for bringing your business model to life.
What I find interesting is that it even talks about storytelling. How does that play into business model design?
Because a business model, at its core, is a story. It's the story of how your business creates value, who it serves, and why it matters. And telling that story in a compelling way is crucial, especially when you're trying to get people on board, investors, partners, even your own team.
So instead of just presenting a dry, technical overview, you're crafting a narrative that people can connect with emotionally.
Exactly. Stories are powerful. They help us make sense of the world, and they stay with us long after the facts and figures have faded. The book provides specific techniques for doing this, using protagonists, conflicts, and resolutions to make your business model resonate with your audience.
That's such a valuable insight. It's not just about the what, it's about the why.
Precisely. Another powerful tool the book highlights is visual thinking.
So instead of just writing everything down, you're using visuals, drawings, diagrams, even mind maps to represent and explore your ideas. It's like giving your brain another way to process information.
Exactly. Visuals can help you see connections that you might miss in a wall of text. They make complex information more digestible and easier to communicate. And the book encourages you to use visual thinking throughout the entire business model design process, from brainstorming to presenting your final concept.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like they say, a picture's worth 1,000
Yeah,
words,
yeah.
especially when you're trying to wrap your head around something as multifaceted as a business model. So storytelling, visual thinking. What other tricks does the book have up its sleeve?
Well, it also stresses the importance of prototyping. And this isn't just for physical products. It's about creating tangible representations of your business model to test your assumptions and gather feedback.
I get it. So instead of just talking about your business model, you're bringing it to life in some way, even if it's just a rough draft.
Exactly. It could be a simple sketch, a role-playing exercise, even a landing page that simulates a key interaction. Anything that allows you to get feedback early and often.
It's like taking your business model for a test drive before you invest too much time and resources.
Exactly. And the beauty of prototyping is that it encourages experimentation and iteration.
Hmm.
You're not afraid to make mistakes because each iteration gets you closer to a stronger, more viable business model.
Okay, so we've covered the tools and the patterns, but how do you actually use this knowledge to analyze a company's strategic position? Can the canvas help with that?
Absolutely. That's where the strategy section of the book comes in. It's all about taking that canvas and using it to analyze your competitive landscape, spot opportunities, and even anticipate potential threats.
So it's not just about your business in isolation, it's about understanding how your business fits into the larger market.
Precisely. The book provides a framework for evaluating your business model in the context of your industry, your competitors, and even the broader economic environment.
It's like you're placing your business model under a microscope and examining it from all angles.
Exactly. And one of the key tools the book recommends is conducting a good old-fashioned SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
The classic SWOT analysis, everyone loves a good SWOT analysis, but this one has a bit of a twist, right?
It does. Instead of just looking at your company as a whole, the book encourages you to apply the SWOT framework specifically to your business model. So it's a more focused approach.
So instead of just saying our company has a strong brand, you'd say something like our business model leverages a strong brand to command premium pricing.
Precisely. It's about getting to the heart of what makes your business model tick and understanding how that stacks up against your competitors.
That's a really smart approach.
Mhm.
So how does the book suggest actually conducting this business model SWOT analysis?
It provides a series of really thought-provoking questions. For example, when analyzing your strengths, it asks, what are your business model's unique advantages? What resources or capabilities are difficult for your competitors to replicate? What do you do better than anyone else?
So it's really forcing you to think deeply about your competitive edge. I like it. What about weaknesses?
For weaknesses, the book prompts you to consider what aspects of your business model could be improved. What should you avoid? What factors might cause you to lose customers? And crucially, how might your competitors perceive your weaknesses?
That's a really important point. It's not just about identifying your own vulnerabilities, it's about anticipating how your competitors might try to exploit them. Okay, what about opportunities? How does the book guide your thinking there?
The book encourages you to be outward focused, considering questions like what emerging trends could benefit your business model? Are there any underserved customer needs that you could address? What new technologies could you integrate to create more value?
So it's about looking ahead, scanning the horizon for potential. I love it. And finally, threats. Those are never fun to think about, but crucial nonetheless.
Absolutely. And here, the book prompts you to consider what obstacles stand in your way? What are your competitors up to? Could changing technologies, new regulations, or even shifts in social trends threaten your business model?
It's about being realistic, even a little bit paranoid, to make sure you're prepared for potential disruptions.
Exactly. The goal is to identify potential threats early on, when you have more options to adapt and respond effectively.
So we've analyzed our competitive landscape, and we've conducted a thorough SWOT analysis all through the lens of our business model. What's the next step in this strategic deep dive?
The book suggests that you analyze your business model from three critical perspectives: the customer segment perspective, the value proposition perspective, and the cost structure perspective.
So it's like looking at your business model through three different lenses. What's the benefit of doing that?
It helps you identify blind spots and ensure that your business model is creating value for all stakeholders, your customers, your business, and your bottom line. It's about finding that sweet spot where everyone benefits.
I like that. Okay, let's break down each of these perspectives. Let's start with the customer segment perspective.
The customer segment perspective is all about understanding your ideal customer, their needs, their wants, their behaviors, even their aspirations.
It's about putting yourself in their shoes, seeing the world from their point of view.
Exactly. The book encourages you to ask questions like, what are the biggest challenges your customers face? What are their priorities? What motivates them to buy? What are their unmet needs?
It's about going beyond just demographics and really understanding what makes your target customer tick. What about the value proposition perspective?
The value proposition perspective is all about the value you're creating for those customers, the problems you're solving, the needs you're fulfilling.
So it's about understanding why a customer would choose your product or service over the competition. What makes you stand out?
Exactly. And to get to the heart of your value proposition, the book asks, what are the specific benefits you offer? How do you make your customers' lives easier, better, or more fulfilling? What makes your offering unique and compelling?
It's about articulating your unique value proposition in a way that resonates with your target customer. Okay, and lastly, the cost structure perspective.
This perspective is all about understanding the costs associated with delivering your value proposition. It's about the financial underpinnings of your business model.
So it's about looking at your costs, but not in isolation. It's about understanding how your costs relate to the value you're creating.
Exactly. And the book encourages you to ask, what are your most significant costs? How can you reduce costs without sacrificing value? Are there innovative ways to optimize your operations and make your business model more efficient?
It's about striking that balance, creating value for your customers while also ensuring the financial sustainability of your business.
Precisely. By analyzing your business model through these three distinct lenses, you can gain a much deeper understanding of its strengths and weaknesses and identify areas for improvement.
This is incredibly helpful. But what about companies that aren't just managing one business model, but multiple at the same time? That seems like it would add another layer of complexity.
You're right, it does.
Mm-hmm.
But the book addresses this very challenge in its section on managing multiple business models.
I'm so glad it does, because in today's business world, it's becoming increasingly common for companies to have their fingers in multiple pies, so to speak.
It's true. Think about a company like Amazon. They've got their online retail business, their cloud computing services with AWS, even their subscription services with Amazon Prime. That's a lot of different business models to juggle.
That's a perfect example. So how do companies manage that complexity effectively?
Well, the book stresses the importance of deciding whether to integrate or separate those different business models. Do they share resources, target similar customer segments, or do they require their own distinct operations, branding, even cultures?
So it's about finding the right balance between synergy and separation.
Exactly. And the book provides some really interesting real-world examples of companies that have successfully navigated this challenge. One example that stands out is the Swatch Group.
The watch company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back in the 1980s, the Swiss watch industry was facing a major crisis. Japanese companies like Seiko were disrupting the market with their inexpensive quartz watches, and many traditional Swiss watchmakers were struggling to compete.
It's hard to imagine a time when Swiss watches weren't at the top of their game. So how did they adapt?
An entrepreneur named Nicholas Hayek stepped in, took over a group of struggling Swiss watchmakers, and decided to fight back. His strategy was to create a new kind of watch, the Swatch.
Ah, the Swatch. Colorful, affordable, and hugely popular in the 80s and 90s.
Exactly. Hayek's vision was to create a watch that was stylish, fun, and accessible, directly challenging the Japanese dominance in the low-end market. But here's where the multiple business model approach comes in. Hayek didn't abandon the high-end luxury watch market.
So he was playing on both ends of the field. Bold move.
It was. He decided to run both a low-cost business model and a luxury business model simultaneously. He carefully segmented his brands and operations, keeping his luxury brands like Omega and Longines separate from the Swatch brand. each with its own distinct identity and target market.
So he was leveraging synergies where it made sense, but also maintaining separation to avoid brand dilution or conflicts in positioning.
Exactly, and it was a brilliant strategy. The Swatch brand revitalized the Swiss watch industry, capturing a significant share of the low-end market while his luxury brands continued to thrive.
That is such a great example of a company successfully managing multiple business models by carefully considering when to integrate and when to separate. So interesting.
It's a valuable lesson for any business facing similar challenges. And speaking of challenges, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the book's take on the future of business models. It really got me thinking.
Me too. So before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to something that really resonated with me, the concept of triple bottom line business models.
Ah, yes, the triple bottom line, a concept that's near and dear to my heart.
Can you refresh our memory on what that means and why it's so important, especially in today's world?
Absolutely. The triple bottom line is a framework for measuring a company's success, not just by its financial performance, the traditional bottom line, but also by its social and environmental impact.
So it's about considering people, planet, and profit.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that a business doesn't exist in a vacuum. It operates within a larger ecosystem, and its actions have consequences both positive and negative for the world around it.
So how does a business actually go about incorporating these social and environmental considerations into its business model? It seems like a pretty radical shift from the traditional profit-driven approach.
It is a shift in mindset, for sure. But the good news is that business model generation provides a framework for doing just that. It actually includes a modified version of the business model canvas that incorporates social and environmental costs and benefits.
Wow, that's so smart. So you can literally use the canvas to design business models that are not just profitable, but also socially and environmentally responsible. I love that.
It's brilliant, isn't it? It takes a tool that's already incredibly versatile and adapts it for a more holistic and sustainable approach to business.
It's incredibly inspiring. Do you have any examples of companies that are doing this well, companies that are successfully weaving the triple bottom line into their business models?
Absolutely. And one company that I find incredibly inspiring is Grameenphone.
Grameenphone, that name rings a bell.
They are a telecommunications company based in Bangladesh. And their founder, Igal Quadir, had this incredible vision of bringing mobile phone service to rural villages in Bangladesh communities that had been largely excluded from the digital revolution.
That sounds incredibly challenging. I can't imagine the logistics involved in bringing mobile phone service to remote villages.
It was a huge undertaking. Many people even thought it was an impossible dream. They argued that these rural villagers were too poor to afford mobile phones, that the infrastructure simply wasn't there to support it. But Quadir saw it differently. He had a different vision.
What was his perspective?
He fundamentally believed that mobile phones could empower these communities, providing them with access to information, education, economic opportunities, and even a stronger voice in their communities. He saw mobile phones as a tool for social and economic development.
That's a beautiful vision.
It is. And what's even more inspiring is how he put that vision into action. He created a business model that was both profitable and socially transformative.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Tell me more. How did you do it?
He formed a partnership with Grameen Bank, the renowned microfinance organization, to provide microloans to local women so they could purchase mobile phones and become phone ladies. These women would then sell mobile phone services to their communities, essentially acting as micro-entrepreneurs.
Wow. So they were empowering women, connecting communities, and building a profitable business all at the same time. That's incredible.
It is. And it was a resounding success. The phone ladies earned an income, villages gained access to vital communication services, and Grameenphone created a sustainable and impactful business model.
That is such a powerful example of the triple bottom line in action. It's proof that you can do well by doing good.
Precisely. And it shows that business can be a force for positive change in the world.
Absolutely. Stories like that give me hope for the future.
Me too.
Okay, so we've explored so much ground today, from the business model canvas to strategic analysis to the future of business models and the inspiring example of companies like Grameenphone. This book is truly a goldmine of insights, and it's clear that business model generation has had a profound impact on the way we think about and design businesses.
It has. And its influence continues to grow as more and more people recognize the power of business models to not only drive economic success, but also to create a more equitable, sustainable, and prosperous future for all.
I love that. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a final provocative thought for our listeners, something to mull over, something that builds on everything we've talked about today.
I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
Welcome back. It's amazing how much ground we've covered already, and yet I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of business model generation. Before we move on, I did want to touch on one thing from last time. We were talking about, pushing the boundaries of business model thinking beyond just traditional companies. It's an idea that really excites me. Applying these principles to tackle some of the world's biggest challenges.
It's a powerful shift in perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking about a nonprofit or a government agency as having customers, a value proposition. It challenges our assumptions about how these organizations operate.
It does, and it makes you realize that the principles of business model design, creating value, understanding your audience, using resources efficiently, those are universally applicable.
Absolutely. Whether you're a Fortune 500 company or a grassroots organization, these principles can help you clarify your goals, streamline your operations, and ultimately make a bigger impact.
It's about recognizing that we can all learn from each other, regardless of our sector or industry. And that's something business model generation really emphasizes, isn't it? This idea of cross-pollination, of breaking down silos and sharing knowledge.
It does. It encourages a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation, of being open to new ideas and approaches. And one of the key takeaways for me is this emphasis on experimentation and iteration.
Yes. It's not about getting it perfect on the first try. It's about being willing to test your assumptions, learn from your mistakes, and adapt along the way.
It's about embracing failure as a necessary step on the road to success.
I love that. It's about recognizing that innovation is rarely a straight line from A to B. It's messy, it's iterative, and it often involves taking a few wrong turns along the way.
And that's where the business model canvas becomes such a valuable tool. It gives you a framework to experiment within, to make those course corrections without losing sight of your overall goals.
It's like a roadmap, but one you're allowed to draw on, erase, and redraw as you go.
Exactly. And the book gives you the tools and techniques to embrace this iterative approach. It talks about the importance of prototyping, of getting feedback early and often, of being willing to pivot if something isn't working.
It's about being agile, adaptable, and responsive to change, which, let's be honest, are essential qualities in today's business world, no matter what kind of organization you're running.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, as we wrap up, it's this incredible deep dive into business model generation. I'm left with a sense of both excitement and possibility. This book has given us so much to think about, so many tools and frameworks to apply to our own work.
It has. It's reignited my passion for business model innovation and reminded me of the power of a well-designed model to drive positive change.
Me too. And as we close out this episode, there's one final thought I want to leave our listeners with. It's something that's been echoing in my mind throughout our entire conversation.
I'm all ears.
This book has shown us that business models are not just dry technical documents. They're stories. They're reflections of our values, our aspirations, our vision for the future. And as we move forward, whether we're building businesses, leading organizations, or simply navigating our own lives, let's remember that we have the power to shape those stories.
Beautifully said.
We have the power to design business models and, by extension, futures that are not just profitable, but also equitable, sustainable, and fulfilling for everyone.
I love that. What a powerful and inspiring message to end on.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye for today. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive into business model generation. Until next time. Keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep asking those big, bold questions.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.